Chair, the live streaming is now started.
Okay, good morning everyone and welcome to Communities and Local Services Scrutiny Committee on Thursday the 22nd of April. We will start by taking introductions at the meeting and we've got a full house today, almost. So Councillor Allen has given her apologies, so we have Councillor Curry in attendance for her, you don't have to say, but Councillor Barch, he has technical issues currently. Councillor Cousins.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Mrs. Cully.
Yes, I'm here, thank you.
Councillor Donoghue.
Here.
Councillor Durham.
Here.
Councillor Hazeldine.
That'll be me.
Councillor McCollum.
Good morning, Chair.
Councillor Tate.
Good morning, Chair.
And Councillor Wallace.
Good morning.
Morning. From Economy and Resources Scrutiny, we've also invited to have Councillor Boddy. Councillor Cruddas. Councillor Harker.
Morning, Chair.
Councillor Linda Hughes. Councillor Mrs. Doris Jones.
Morning, Chair, sorry.
All right. Councillor McEwen. And Councillor Paley. Portfolio holders, Councillor Dalston. Councillor Kia. Councillor Marshall. Okay. Officers, we have Ian Thompson.
Morning.
Brian Graham.
Here, Chair.
Susie Hill.
Good morning.
Mike Croshaw.
Morning, everyone.
Heather Tarrant Jones.
Morning.
Mark Laderman.
Morning, Chair.
Morning. And from Market Asset Management, we have Raymond Lynch.
Morning, Chair.
Okay. Hopefully I haven't missed anyone out. So next we'll move on to the declarations of interest. Do we have any? No hands up. Move on to approve the minutes of the meeting of this scrutiny held on the 25th of February. Do we have any comments or matters rising from the minutes? Okay, I have Councillor Curry.
Thank you. On item CLS 34, the item B, it says a court of aims to be submitted to the scrutiny. Will this be during the implementation of the 3 schools, or will it be afterwards so that you've had a bit of a learning curve of whether it worked or not? I just want clarification on that.
Just check, Hannah, do you know on that one? I know David and Stanley's getting that court of aims together.
No, I'm sorry, I don't have an update for that at present. I can try and find out for you though.
Yes, please. Councillor Durham.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a comment to CLS 32 point D, that members be provided with figures for empty properties in Darlington. We were given some information, but I did send a reply to that because it didn't actually answer the question which I asked in scrutiny. So I'll resend the email after this, and obviously we can follow up on that.
Yes, please. Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so I'd like to propose that these are a true representation. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, and a quick show of hands. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so we have a verbal update from the Managing Director of Market Asset Management, Raymond Lynch, on the indoor and outdoor markets. We also have Mark Laderman backing him up. Over to you guys.
If you don't mind, Chair, I'll start, and I think we're probably going to do a team effort, and I will share the presentation with you as Raymond starts. As members will be aware, we come on a regular basis to give an update as regards to the progress of the indoor market, and also elements of work that we're doing to try to increase popularity of the outdoor market. First of all, with the outdoor market, obviously there's been a number of challenges with the pandemic, etc. But I'm sure Raymond can share with you some of the actions that are taken to try to increase the numbers of stall holders on the outdoor market. But in particular, with regards to progress in the indoor market, work commenced in January this year. Quite an extensive refurbishment of the market to ensure that we retain our traditional market stalls within there, with the fresh fruit and vegetables, butchery, fish, cheese, etc. But likewise, add quite an exciting new twist to make it into a more of a modern market, with the inclusion of street foods, the opportunity for community eating, etc., and hospitality. But likewise, a real venue that we can put on small events and festivals, etc. Work has been progressing really well. There have been a few issues with regards to the identification of some asbestos which needed to be removed, which has delayed the vacant possession of the site until the early week of May. But otherwise, it's progressing really well. I will try to share my screen, Chair, if you don't mind. And once that's been achieved, I will hand over to Raymond.
Yes, please.
Can people see that screen, Chair?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
That's great. And so, again, I'll just introduce Raymond Lynch, who's the Managing Director of Market Asset Management.
Morning, everyone. Thank you, Mark. Everybody hear me okay?
Yep, all good.
All right, thank you. Okay, yeah, well, Mark's given us a broad outline already. Probably, on the whole, very good news, I think. Phase 1, which we're all aware of, is going well. Slight delays because of the asbestos, but because of lockdown and all the rest of it, that delay doesn't impact on us too much anyway, because obviously there's only a time when we can actually open. Just to remind everybody, phase 1 includes 6 street food kiosks. Pre-lettings are going very well, by the way, with some wonderful food offers, and a bar, and a stage, and the stage is being built at the moment, and a new entrance, toilets, and we've also slipped into phase 1, the big heating project, which some of you may remember is a biomass boiler powered by wood pellets, which is being installed into the basement, which is very interesting if you're a bit of an engineering geek like me, and that is progressing well as well. So we like working up our green credentials. The image in front of you is what phase 1 roughly will look like when it opens in June of this year. Okay, Mark, thank you. Next one. We are working, I know the team's working very closely with Mike, with lots of wonderful events to relaunch the market over the next couple of months. I think Peace Pudding starts again next month, and that'll be slightly in advance of the phase 1 opening. But full diaries of events, which is obviously very exciting. And more of the same. So there'll be lots of life in and around the market. If we go to the next one, I'll get on to a bit more technical stuff, and then the next one again. Oh no, that one's fine. One of the challenges we've faced because of sort of the asbestos hiccup, and also the temperate garden, and we've been pushing for quite a bold design that makes a real statement for Darlington, which I hope we will get planning for very shortly. Perhaps Mark will update us on that. Because what I really want to try and achieve is keeping the current contractor on site so that we can as far as possible, seamlessly provide them with work through the next stages without them having to pull off because we can't keep up with them. And I think we've certainly achieved that for phase 2. And for those who don't remember, phase 2 is the remaining part of the shop floor of the market. The whole of the shop floor will be phase 1 and phase 2. And the plan is that they start phase 2 as soon as phase 1 is finished, and phase 1 will be finished in May. Phase 2 doesn't include so much work, new entrances, M&E, but also we will be assisting traders in their applications for some grants to refurbish their own stores. And whilst all that is going on, we will also use the contractor down in the basement to start stripping out some areas of there that are currently vacant, so that hopefully by the time phase 2 is underway, planning would already have been obtained for the temperate garden and orders placed for the steelwork and glazing. Following phase 2, they're just going to phase 3, which is the temperate garden essentially in the basement. And I'm still hoping that we're out of there the contractor is out of there by Christmas. We'll see. It's not in our hands totally at the moment, but certainly we will get the whole of the shop floor finished by the summer, which is the original intention. There are photos there of scaffolding and all the rest of it. If you go to the next slide, Mark, we can update you on the roof. Right, the roof is practically done. If you look at the top right and the bottom right, they're rather wonderful images of a roof that's practically complete. And the image on the left is that there are just 2 bays requiring completion. And it's an extremely thorough professional job. And I think they've got about 10 days to go, and then we're done. So that's a great success as well. It's nice to have a dry market. Well, it will be nice to have a totally dry market for a change. And the next one, again, that's what phase 1 will look like, something like that. So all the furniture has been ordered. As I said, the pre-lets are going very well. We're hoping to open completely full in phase 1, and with a full program of events for the stage. For evenings and during the daytime. And the next slide, nighttime economy. Obviously, it's not all rock bands. We are still determined, as we do in the Wool Market in Doncaster, and we will be doing in Sheffield, is a real family entertainment as well. And as I've said to you before, some of our busiest, most popular evenings over in Doncaster are a family quiz nights, where we literally have over 500 people coming along midweek to a family-based quiz night. So that's all in the planning as well, and we have in-house PR people and event planners. And the next one, please, Mark. And we hope to get your taste buds watering, really. That's the sort of image, that's the feel that phase 1 will give. Lots of people sitting down in groups of friends and families, sitting at the same table, but all enjoying food from different people, which is the great thing about food halls, which is very, very exciting. And the last one, I think, and that's really to get your taste buds watering, really. We are very particular about getting the right people in. Anybody who comes to us and says, what do you want me to sell? We turn away pretty much straight away. We are only after businesses who have a clear picture of what they want to do. And it has to obviously fit in with our business plan. We're not going to have 2 gourmet burger places next to each other. So there has to be variety, and they have to prove to us that they can do it very well. And every application has to be underpinned by their own business plan, not only the menus, the uniforms, their fit-out plans, but also their business cases, so that we can monitor their progress on a live basis. And to remind you again, all of these traders will be connected by an EPOS system to our central terminal, so we can monitor exactly their performance. And I think that's, in a nutshell, where we're up to at the moment.
Mark, did you want to come back in or?
Thanks, Chair. As Raymond has said, it's really exciting. This is going to be quite transformational for the town centre in regards to what the offer is, in particular, notwithstanding what's happened over the last 12 months or so. Members will recall the type of strategic vision that we had for the market was while providing a high quality venue for local people. We also wanted to make it a regional attractor as well. We understand that, apart from what Durham has, there is very little facilities of this type of offer within the Tees Valley, North Yorkshire and South Durham, and hopefully further afield. So we'll get people coming for a day to spend within Darlington, clearly using the new market hall, but likewise the spin-offs that hopefully local retailers will actually experience from people actually coming to Darlington. So we want people to make that conscious decision to come to Darlington for a day or even 2 days and stay within the town, exploring the town and the regions around it, but likewise taking real advantage of the growing offer that I feel, and I'm sure members feel, that Darlington is beginning to provide. And likewise, members will be aware of the notifications of the relocation of Treasury. This again is upping our game with regards to what the offer has within the town, and I think this will be a real pearl. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Raymond. All looks very positive. I'm sure we're all excited for it to open. So we'll open the floor to questions. Councillor Donoghue. Fastest buzzer first.
I'm not sure whether it's Raymond or Mark, but you didn't actually mention the outdoor market as to how any new stalls are coming.
Chair, if I may, I've been fortunate to come in the office the last few days, and I was in it on Monday, and I was very pleasantly surprised at the vibrancy and the number of stalls that were actually in situ on the market square, which really added to the excitement and the humdrum of the town. But I know Hayden, who works with Raymond, has got a plan that they're developing over the next few weeks. Clearly, it's quite different from the indoor market, because the indoor market has been a lot of refurbishment and work, which hasn't been hindered by the restrictions imposed by the COVID pandemic. But I'm not too sure if Raymond has got anything to add to that. But Hayden gave myself, Paul Wildsmith and Ian Williams assurances that by May time they will have a programme of what they're trying to do to attract more stall holders. Chair. But I'll pass over to Raymond.
That's it, Mark, really. Not just in Darlington, but elsewhere as well. We are now gearing up for quite a lot of activity from May onwards. As I said, Peas Pudding is going to start off in May. And there is a big programme of events and markets that's being compiled at the moment, which we could share with you once it's completed in 2 or 3 weeks' time, if you like.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think a few members are quite eager to see the outdoor market strategy as soon as it's ready. So.
Yeah. Also, sorry, Chair. Also, could we have copies of the presentation, please?
Yeah, certainly, Councillor Donoghue. I'll send them through to Hannah to download and send out. It's quite a big presentation, so you might get a couple of emails with them on, but I'll send them through.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Councillor McCollum.
Thank you, Chair. Can I thank you both for that presentation? It's always nice to look at pictures of what it could possibly be. I'm just a little bit disappointed that you haven't presented figures regarding the current performance of the market. And certainly it's good to hear, I thank Councillor Donoghue for his question leading up to this, but I asked back in our meeting in August for a long-term vision for the outdoor market, and you made a somewhat offhand promise that it would be with us soon. I have asked at every subsequent scrutiny meeting until January. I asked the cabinet member, got a very woolly response, and I'm still waiting for something. Because while Mark Laderman says that the outdoor market was looking very vibrant this past week, it has. And that's down to traders doing their best and being incredible at what they do and bringing people down into the town and creating a lovely humdrum atmosphere. But what they're not getting is support from this council And I dare say a strategy would go a long way for that. There is no infrastructure in that market to support anything other than self-erection, which is already limiting the number of traders you can have. I have continually asked for a plan because without a strategy to continue on the market square, I have to advocate for us moving it back to where it was before, on High Row, West Row, Northgate, Bongate. I'm sure councillors in this meeting can sing along with me in harmony at this point. But can I just ask that we move this along? Because it is really disappointing that there has been nothing, and I appreciate we are in unprecedented times, for want of a better, more original phrase, but can I just ask that it is expedited? Thank you.
Any comment on that?
There's a lot there. First thing about the financial performance of the market, I'm not sure that's something we need to divulge. Actually, it's it's commercially sensitive. It's been incredibly tough up until this moment. We have more optimistic forecasts going forward post phase 1 launch. But apart from that, I'm not sure whether that needs to be disclosed. The outdoor market, it's not all self-erect. When we put on the events and things like that, we do erect all the seating areas and the covers and all the rest of it. And it has been incredibly difficult over this year. I'm not sure how people really realise. We are probably one of the only companies in the country that have kept all of our markets open. The vast majority of municipal markets nationwide closed completely, even a lot of their food businesses as well. We kept every single one of our markets open, which was a huge effort, really. And now in Darlington, we've been concentrating on the building itself, which is very time consuming. And again, we've kept that going during the pandemic. And now we're applying our minds to the future of that, which is the jewel in the crown, and the outdoor market. And as I said, we'll be releasing, we can distribute to you in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know how we do that, Mark, but you can explain how we can do that. The plans for the outdoor market, which we're working with Mike with.
Mark, could you clarify how much detail we are at liberty to see? Because I would like to make sure that this committee and economy sees everything that's in our best interest as the council.
I suppose what we can look at is the occupancy levels of the market, but in regards to, I suppose, the profit and loss of MAM and the running of the market, that may well be, as Raymond pointed out, commercially confidential. But with regards to the popularity of the stalls, whether that be in the indoor market or the outdoor market, we can certainly see what the potential number of stalls that could be within the outdoor market are actually being populated and used, and likewise the number of stalls that are within the indoor market are being actually populated. Yeah.
Just
Raymond?
one thing. When it comes to the finances concerning the redevelopment, that is totally transparent, and the council see those on an ongoing basis. I think, Mark, was it now monthly? We get very, very precise updates of exactly what we've done, how much we've spent, how much is left, how much we're pledging in order to make. But that is totally transparent, and there's no issues about that whatsoever. Totally transparent within the council. Obviously, we don't want that to sort of be broadcast.
Okay, Mark, would it be possible for you to just get a solid clarification on everything that we're able to scrutinise as a committee and economy and resources, and that would be helpful so that we don't ask the wrong questions. Okay. And if it comes to having a session in private because of the sensitive nature, then that would be, because I know a lot of councillors are keen to see everything we're entitled to. So, okay, Councillor Heseltine.
Thanks, Chair. A couple of points. One was to support Councillor McCollum's position on a financial update, and I'm pretty sure that we're not asking for profit or loss within MAM's operations, but we're in a partnership with and have contractual arrangements with them as a council, and surely we're entitled to have that financial information made available to us on the spend. There are large or considerably large sums of money floating, well, not floating around, but in use. And I think as councillors and the council, we should understand how that is being used and spent. Second point is, I just wonder if, and I'm not asking for in-depth detail, I suppose, but there is, I don't know, rumour, speculation, understanding that the terms and conditions that you're asking of potential traders within the indoor market are beyond or unreachable in some cases for smaller businesses, and might even be distracting for the larger businesses. Do you think that the terms and conditions you are offering are in line with encouraging new start small businesses, single person businesses to come to the market to look at setting up their small enterprises, or even a larger enterprise? Just to maybe scotch a little bit, if you can, the rumours and speculation about, I understand something like 20% charge on everything.
Okay, going back to the first point, yeah, if there has been a misunderstanding, the costs associated with the redevelopment are shared all the time with the council, with officers. So that's for you to sort of decide what can be shared amongst yourself. There's no question. There's funny feedback I'm getting. The conditions of the leases being offered to new tenants are the same as we use in every single market. If you're talking about the street food traders, we do not charge a flat rent. We do not charge a service charge, but we do charge a turnover rent that varies and on average is about 20%, which, if you think about it, is about normal for what a rent and a service charge would be. And I'll explain the conditions why. It does not put people off. Well, it might put some people off, but on the whole, it doesn't put people off. We do not really want very, very large businesses in there. We're all about independent, local and regional businesses. The advantage of the turnover rent, and we have loads of anecdotal evidence about this, and other companies charge up to 35%, which we don't, is that if a trader is having a lean week, typically, you know, the first couple of months of the year, January and February, their rent is less because they're taking less, so they pay less. Conversely, if we are keeping the market open till 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, certain nights of the week, and we're having to pay obviously the electricity, security, staff, all of those things, then it would only be fair for the traders to pay more rent for them to be able to enjoy that business. And the logic is the easiest way for that to happen is just to charge a turnover rent. The longer they're there and the more they take, then effectively the more they pay, but as a fixed percentage. And it's very popular, and demand for these units is very high, and we become very selective about it. I think I may have told you this before, but when we did a similar project, a bit larger, in the one in Doncaster, we had 12 viable applications for every single unit. And there were 12 solid, good applications for every single unit. So we filled the whole place, so there were 12 units there. And that opened 2-3 years ago now. Of the 12, 11 of them are still there, and only one of them has changed. We only had churn of one, and they're all enjoying the business there. So it suits them as well. They don't have to pay a particularly high rent if they're going through a lean patch, and they don't mind paying more rent if they're going through a good patch. And that's the way that I think all markets are going to go more and more over the next 10 years or so. But certainly the rest of the terms and conditions are incredibly equitable. We do not want traders trading in the market if they don't want to be there. So we put mutual break clauses in. so that a trader can serve notice to leave if they want to, as we can serve notice on them, but we would only want to serve notice on them if they're not performing or for whatever reason. And generally speaking, our leases are very well regarded in the industry. I hope that answers.
Councillor Heseltine, I think you're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry about that, Chair. Also, my understanding is that any traders or new traders coming in will be or are expected to use all your services, ordering and all the rest of it. It's all done through your business, so to speak. Is that true? And if it is it not restrictive practice?
I don't know what you mean, because I've never heard of that before. So that's probably speculation. There is one element which may be confusing, which is, for example, the only one I can think of, which I hopefully you'll agree is fair, is as Uber Eats and Deliveroo and all the others, those services become more popular, we will encourage all of the traders not only to earn money from serving food in the market and doing their own takeaways, you know, selling you whatever you're going to and then you're going away, but also we will sign up to, as a group, to Deliveroo, etc., so that we collectively get a better rate, because otherwise what would happen as well is that Mr. Smith, the gourmet burger trader, may be using the Darlington market, his unit within Darlington market, for perhaps 40% of his turnover might be on Deliveroo. And would that be fair to other traders? Because he's still using the environment, the air, the electricity, the water, and all the rest of it. So by going through the Darlington Market Deliveroo app, then the market gets a percentage as well to compensate for the use of the services that we're providing. And then that is only fair, but that is the only example I can think of. There's nothing else that they could buy from us or expect us to sell to them. So I'm not sure where that's come from.
Right. I have a final point, Chair, if that's all right.
Yep.
And the plans that you put forward, I mean, have been a long time in the coming. I remember our initial meeting some time ago where the gentleman, I can't remember his name, did a presentation about their expectations of what they were going to do, and even talked about getting things made to hang on the columns outside for a mezzanine and stuff. And I know things move on and things change, but I think from that original presentation to where we are now, the changes have been quite dramatic, and I accept that time moves on and we have to make changes. Can you tell me what will be the balance inside the indoor market between traders and your open space? Will it be a 50-50 split, 40-60? You know, in which way are we leaning? Are we leaning to a fair share of food and services around that food, or an attraction to the food, and then hope that you thought a 60-40 split? Have you got some idea what you're looking at?
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually, and it's very relevant to the industry today. There is a renaissance in markets at the moment. You may have realised there's a renaissance about localism, getting back to communities. Supermarkets and multinationals have decimated the market industry nationwide for the last 40 years. And it's only now that, lockdown perhaps, that people are appreciating their markets a lot more. Again, in Doncaster on Saturday, we had people queuing to get into the Woolmarket venue like this, right across the market. And when they're interviewed, they're willing to wait an hour to queue up just to go in to buy a takeaway, rather than go to McDonald's or Burger King. The actual split in the market, phase one, which we're doing at the moment, is a third of the shop floor. And within phase one, we have, as you know, 6 street food units, a bar and a stage. and 200 covers. So within phase one, the split is about 50-50. 50%, no, sorry, it's about, yeah, it's 50% lettable space, 50% seating, public space, if you like. The rest of the market, the shop floor, which is phase two, remains pretty much as it is. So, and that is a net to gross. It's about 50-50 again. You've got about 50% stalls. It's about 60-40. 60% stalls to 40% aisles and walking space. There will be a natural move towards food retail because the food catering is dealt with in phase one. The industry itself is going more and more towards food. And that's not by design, that's not by anything we're trying to do, it's just what is happening. People are wanting to buy locally produced, sourced, retailed food. And that's the way the market is going, and I think that's a good idea. We do not have a specific lettings campaign to exclude non-food. For example, in the market, you know, on the very front, they're the guys doing vintage and records. They will, as far as I'm concerned, they are staying. All the other food retailers, Phoenix, Blair's and all the rest of it are staying. And there are grants to help them refurbish their own stores, news agents. And that will be a natural progression over the years as to whether that becomes even more food or even more non-food or even more services. There's no particular, we want to, you know, market forces to prevail. Good businesses will thrive and some may move on. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does to a point, but I'll be interesting to see how we develop. I have views that I don't particularly want to share at the minute till I have more information. Thank you.
Chair, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Apologies. Yeah, can I just jump in with two questions that are relevant to what's just been said? Firstly, clarification on turnover. Is that turnover only of what is done on site, including the delivery up, or is it business turnover as a total?
It's turnover generated from Darlington market sites. Okay. If they have another business elsewhere, that's none of our business. You know, it's the business that is on site. Okay. And secondly, you mentioned the grants that you're going to be helping stallholders to apply for these grants. What happens if they're unsuccessful? Will there be the odd one out, or will they not conform to the new style? I'll probably let Mark chip in later. It's your grant, actually. It's a grant coming from you to each stallholder. What we're doing, we're facilitating. We're making sure that the traders know what's available. We're holding their hands as much as they want their hands held as to how they can improve their stores. We're giving them retail advice, free of charge, obviously, to help them think about how their stores can be improved. And then we will help facilitate, make sure all the contractors, their own contractors, come in a timely manner and all the rest of it. I don't think anybody will not be successful if somebody comes in and says, you know, that that isn't obviously acceptable. Then we just keep going back to them till that we find a good solution for them that they want and that is fundable. It's not, everybody will get that fund. Every stallholder will get that fund. We just want to make sure that it's not, it's invested carefully, put it that way, without being too subjective. You know, we had a meeting about this yesterday about, you know, do we foster colour schemes on them? No, they're all individual businesses. They've all got their own fascias. They've all got their own uniforms. But it's for them to self-improve, if you like. That makes sense. Yeah, good. That's good. Thank you. Councillor McCollum, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just following on from Councillor Hazeldine's point. So there are 6 street food kiosks, I think I've got that right. Can I ask, what's the current sign-up on that? Have you got many left over? Certainly, I know Councillor Hazeldine spoke to the terms and conditions. I spoke to a business this morning who are currently outside Darlington but want to move to Darlington Town Centre. Why wouldn't they? It's on the up. The problem is they went around, and the terms and conditions that you offered, 20% of turnover, in addition to their current 20% VAT, is 40% of their turnover right off the bat. And it's not particularly appealing. The only way they could get it to work is if they're a side hustle, they're a branch of a main restaurant. Now, do you think that your terms and conditions exclude larger aspirational businesses who want to do more business consistently throughout the year? Are your terms and conditions going to off-put those larger businesses from coming into our market?
No. There will be some businesses, there will be many businesses who don't want to come in for all sorts of reasons. And many of them will consider 20% is too much for them. It's as simple as that. If they've reached the VAT threshold, excellent, good for them. But they will be able to claim 20% off of the VAT back off the turnover rent anyway. But 20% is a bit of a misnomer, really. It is 20%. It is a hard 20%, but they're not paying rent. They're not paying a fixed rent. They're not paying a fixed service charge. As far as possible, they probably will not be paying a business rate either. So if they actually sit down, and they can sit down with us and our lettings team do this all the time and go through the scenarios, generally, if they tend to perform as per their own expectations and our expectations, a middle line, the 20% is about what they would pay anyway. If they underperform, they will pay less rent than they would normally pay. But if they overperform, they will pay more rent. So we're happy, and they don't mind too much because they're overperforming. But we can't run our business based on what traders who do not want to come in or will not come in, what they want. The business is based on 20%. Sometimes it's less, sometimes, but on average it's 20%. And sometimes there are concessions as well.
Mike, you wanted to come on that?
Yeah, if I can just in really echo what Raymond's been saying. Obviously, before lockdown, we did as officers a couple of site visits to Mackie Mays, which is in Manchester, to Commune, which is in Sheffield, and to the Steelworks, which is also in Sheffield. And it's very, very similar types of a 20% low rent and a 20% cost on turnover. So it is like it is a market. It's a usual market charge that has been levied at the Darlington market. So it's nothing obscene or out of kilter with what else is going on in very, very successful food markets, which I've just mentioned.
We are at the lower end. As Mark said, other places charge a rent and a turnover rent. But we don't. We just do the turnover at 20%. There are firms now charging 30 and even up to 35%. We don't. The whole thing about our ethos is that, and why we are not present in the centre of London, for example, is that everything that I've done is always making the offer open to everyone. And I'm talking about the offer. Remember, for me, it's all about the customers. If we get the customers happy, then everything else works. And it's not making the offer exclusive. The offer within Darlington Market will not be exclusive. It's open to everybody. Every part of the community will feel comfortable in this venue. And therefore, every trader must feel comfortable too. And there will be traders who will not feel comfortable about coming, and they won't come in. We have an inquiry book at the moment of over 100 people for this area. Probably, I don't know, the majority of them are not. We do not find them suitable. They may think they're absolutely suitable for it, but we don't. We scrutinise them very carefully. And it's not just about the rent, it's about what they do, what their aspirations are, what they're going to offer. Are they going to do alcohol? Are they not going to do alcohol? Well, if we don't do alcohol, we won't allow them to do alcohol, things like that. It's a whole process. And people who just fixate on 20%, are probably not the people we want. We want people who fixate on the quality of the beef in that burger or the halloumi in that salad. That's what we're after. And the money comes later. And sometimes if we absolutely fall in love with an offer that we think is going to boost footfall and incredibly, we'll bend over backwards as well.
Okay. Councillor Tate.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Mark and Raymond for the update on the market. Just talking about the market, you said we get regular updates. I can't put my finger on the last update we got about the market, so I don't know if I've missed one or whenever that was. Just in regards to the existing stall holders, Mark, can I ask if the council is funding their revamp, what pot of money or fund is that coming from, please?
Yes, Councillor Tate. There's, I mean, it's not a vast amount of money, as you know. We've got a shop fronts grant, which we've also earmarked for a small amount of funding to help them just really take advantage of the relaunch. You know, it's some of the stalls could be, you know, the £50,000-60,000, and we're not proposing that. It's a small amount of grant that went through cabinet a couple of years ago on the shop front side, that we can probably use on that particular area. There's also some COVID funding as well that we can possibly use for them opening up. So it's not a new grant as such. It's something that's been existing, Chair.
Okay, so that might predate my election then. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor. And just to confirm, we had an update on the 27th of August last year.
Sorry, just to come back in on that, Chair. Yeah, I thought it was that long ago.
Okay. Any more questions on that? Okay. I'd like to thank Raymond and Mark for the presentation and note to the report, and move on to item number 5, which is an update on Darlington Libraries presentation by Susie Hill. Apologies, I was just checking. Susie, over to you.
Good morning, thank you. I'm just going to try and share my screen. I've got some visuals I'd like you to see. Has that worked okay?
Yep, all good.
Okay, good morning everyone. My name is Susie Hill. Last year I was appointed as the new library manager after my predecessor retired in March. First of all, thank you for the opportunity for me to tell you a little bit about libraries in Darlington today. I'm not sure how much knowledge you already have, so please forgive me if some of this is a little bit oversimplistic. I'll obviously be happy to take further questions at the end. The first thing to say is that libraries are a statutory service and we are free at the point of delivery. We're generally not considered as income generating, but we do make valuable and wide-ranging contributions to society through education, health and well-being. I'm hopefully going to provide some examples of this today, but the message I want to share with you is that we are more than just books. We're quite unique in Darlington in that we only have one library and one part-time branch. Darlington Central Library currently houses the Lending Library, the Reference Library, e-Library Computer Suite, our Centre for Local Studies and the Crown Street Art Gallery. And we've got a small and friendly branch library in Cockerton, which is open part-time with easy access and it's got free parking nearby. We do offer an online library where residents can access books and resources at the touch of a button from their computer or their phone or their tablet. This, as you can imagine, has been of particular interest to people during this last year of lockdowns. I'm sure everyone here is aware that there is a planned refurbishment of Darlington Library scheduled to start any day now, and we're also making some improvements to our branch library in Cockerton. It's a really, really exciting time for our service, and although we've got challenges like every other department in the aftermath of this last year, we're really optimistic that we'll have buildings and an offer that we and the whole council would be proud to shout about. I'm going to bring us on to talking about COVID. Back in March last year, we, like others, had to close our doors. This pushed us to think differently, and we had to adapt to the changes quickly, making sure that we were keeping staff and our customers safe, whilst we offered as much of a service as we could. As a new manager, I recognised that there were opportunities to improve our digital offer. and COVID and the lockdowns really did accelerate our work on this. The moment we closed our doors, we implemented online membership. We saw around 200 people join in under 6 weeks. And since March 2020, we've had around 870 new members, despite the limited service and despite our closures. We promoted our digital offer much more due to this and the fact people were actively engaging in digital reading more nationally. You can see in these statistics the huge increase we have seen in digital borrowing. There was a modest 5,000 issues in year 1, jumping up to 25,000 in year 3. We more than doubled that last year to nearly 60,000 people as they struggle to access our physical stock. Here you should be able to see the monthly issues. These obviously rise yearly, but from the grey to the yellow, you can see the steep climb last year. This clear spikes in March, April and November and December when our doors were closed for browsing. We invested in a library app. This is free to download and it allows users to self-manage their account. They can log in, search our catalogue, and they can select and collect books from the library of their choice. This, alongside our self-service kiosks, really helped us to facilitate borrowing and library use safely during the pandemic. The app also makes it really easy for people to see what we offer in terms of events, links to online resources, and our online collection of books, newspapers and magazines. Behind the scenes, we're also making changes to our systems to improve staff performance and efficiency. We're trying to update and modernise the library for both staff and service users. Going back to when we closed our doors back in March 2020, our thoughts immediately went to how we help those most in need. We were initially very concerned for our older users. The over 70s were being asked to stay home for 12 weeks, potentially leaving them isolated at risk of loneliness. We already did deliver books to those classed as housebound, but we decided to extend this service to anyone aged 60 or over who was living in Darlington. I can't tell you how well this service is being received. The feedback from customers has been absolutely phenomenal. We have had such wonderful comments, cards, notes from our customers, and we as staff have found it an absolute joy to work on. We've acquired the help of Darlington Support to deliver the book packages, and we're currently delivering to around 275, 280 households per month. But of course, it wasn't just older people who were disadvantaged during the first lockdown. We used to have 200 children join us for activities in the library each week, mainly babies and preschool children who we are trying to get talking, listening, responding to sounds, letters, rhymes and rhythm. Suddenly, these children are all at home. They've got limited opportunities for interaction and limited exposure to stories, language and enrichment. So we went online onto our Facebook pages and we provided story times, Lego and craft activities, and things to really keep families engaged in educational activities from home. We also supported schools by sending boxes of books and resources for them to use with the children of key workers and those children who are still attending due to being considered potentially at risk. We also sent resources to nurseries so that staff could use them to have a home visit for a welfare check or to, safeguarding checks on children. And we worked with the virtual school to provide educational packs to look after children in care. Children's education and attainment is an incredibly important part of our offer, and I see the library making a real difference to the children and families who we reach. I'm really keen to reach more children and families in the future. Throughout this last year, we've had periods of closures and times when we were open for just quick book borrowing, but we haven't offered many of the things we usually would. And our opening hours have been reduced to allow for the COVID secure policies. For a vast proportion of this year, we haven't been able to hear the noise and the activity of the children's library, and we haven't been able to chat to customers about the latest Jojo Moyles book. But we have worked hard at maintaining and extending our customer base, and we've had various initiatives, such as offering themed bags for customers to collect from our doors. So at Christmas, we put together children's books to borrow alongside a Santa craft and a little gift. And for Mental Health Awareness Week, we offered wellbeing bags for adult and child, which included appropriate book stock, some mindful colouring. You can see the little bath bomb there with a little toy inside, and some information from Public Health. We then put together 5 recommended reads, which were theme bags of books for adults, teens and children of all ages. We've just recently launched our Reading Well bags, which, as well as books to borrow, contain some public health information and some seeds to plant as a positive wellbeing activity. All of these initiatives have kept libraries in the public eye and borrowing accessible for our customers throughout the year. And we should be able to see, hopefully my stats are displaying there, that in 2021-22, no, 2020-21, so the year of lockdown, the year of our closures, reduced services, we've actually managed to maintain over 60% of our item issues, which I'm incredibly proud of. If I move us on to this graph here, you should be able to see the physical book issues over the last 5 years, and the proportion of adults and children's stock being borrowed. Adults there is displayed in the orange and children's in the blue. These figures don't take into account the digital borrowers. But you can see here, in that last year of COVID, adult borrowing was down 49%, junior borrowing is down 70%. So this clearly displays that we have lost more of our junior borrowers over the pandemic. The statistics we do have are mainly from the bags we've produced. To me, this clearly evidences that activities, events, experiences are the draw for children and families to use the library. In a lot of cases, the book borrowing is now a secondary offer. Now, I'm sure I don't need to tell anyone here on how important book sharing is with young children. So this really highlights the need for activity to be a big part of our library's offer, in order to engage children in reading so that they can go on to future success and attainment. We are committed to providing opportunities for children to visit our library. We want them to have positive educational and enjoyable experiences, with this overarching aim to increase language and literacy competency in our younger residents. I'm going to just bring us on to the performance indicators. From what I can see, we previously reported on the number of physical visits to the library, the number of book loans, the number of ICT sessions at the library, number of users of local studies, the number of library members who have borrowed a book in the last year, and that reservation figure. I've recommended some changes to these, so I'll talk through the new performance indicators and the reason I'm suggesting these changes. Firstly, items borrowed. I felt a little bit disappointed when I saw that we were reporting physical book issues only, because we've done a lot of work advertising and promoting our digital borrowing, and part of our budget is now, of course, allocated to digital stock. So the same goes for audiobooks, which were not previously included in the book loans report. Now, we're not snobby about what or how people read. Our role is to provide the materials, and we support and encourage residents to read and enjoy them. If I show you the difference in the statistics here, you can see that when we talk about physical book issues, shown here in the blue line, it shows performance falling year on year. Nationally, this is the case, as libraries are no longer seen as places to just borrow books. But please compare this with the orange line, when we report on all our reading material. There is a much less significant drop in the figures, because people are still borrowing and reading. It's just that there are now multiple formats of books to choose from. So in short, I'd really like to encapsulate all of our borrowing figures, taking into account the audiobooks, the digital and physical books, and the loan of our magazines and newspapers. Bringing us back here and moving us on to physical stock borrowed from Darlington and Cockerton Library. So this would encapsulate the physical stock borrowed from each of our 2 separate library buildings, books and the audiobooks. You may not know the background of our branch library and why we haven't been reporting on these separately. It was around 2016, it was planned that the branch library in Cockerton would move to a volunteer model, so the staff at this library were made redundant. When this decision was later reversed, we have staffed the branch library from the pool of staff at Darlington Library. So we are currently looking at restructuring and hope to restaff Cockerton with a dedicated workforce. We hope they'll be able to nurture positive relationships with customers, including the local schools in the area. The staff will have more ownership and pride over the building and the service, and there'll be improved communication between those team members. I would like to see performance improve at our branch, and I think it's proper that statistics are transparent for both libraries. Coming on to physical visits to the library, we would still like to report on these, but we're separating them for the same reason, in that we would like to see the progress at Cockerton as well as the town. Now, the number of group engagements. This is a hugely important statistic for us to report on. My previous role at the library was all about engaging children and families in library services. And we have seen a monumental increase in people visiting our buildings for educational and enjoyable experiences. Due to things moving online this year, we've chosen to report on these in 3 different ways. So we've got the group engagement, which refers to anything we provide, whether that be online in our library buildings or at an external venue. It will encapsulate all that outreach we do, visits to schools, nurseries, businesses, but additionally we will collect data about how many activities we provide at both our library venues. As I said at the beginning, we are more than just books, and we're motivated to provide meaningful interactions for people of all ages in Darlington. We believe that these make a real positive difference to people's lives. The number of educational interactions. Libraries are a world of information and education. We would like educational establishments to visit us, and we would like to visit their settings to reach a wider audience, and we thought we'd collect some data around that. Excuse me, I'll just have a little sip of water. The last 2 performance indicators are existing ones or similar in respect of the local studies one. They detail specific statistics for our Centre for Local Studies and our Stock Services Department, and they're probably sensible to keep some data on. We believe we can accurately report on all of these. We can measure them against previous and future years. They differentiate the town to the branch library better. This will allow us to set some staff targets, demonstrate the progress. Ultimately, I believe these better reflect our service provision now. Moving forward, we are going through a huge transition. Everyone is handling a pandemic, both at work and at home. My staff are getting used to new management with a completely new approach. Our buildings are going through a refurbishment. Darlington Library, that I'm sat in at the moment, is likely to have scaffolding up for 24 months. Service provision will move around as different rooms and spaces become available to us. So in short, I expect to see a bumpy few years whilst we transition. But during this transition, our libraries will remain open, albeit not always in their entirety. We aim to keep ourselves in the public eye. We'll be promoting book sharing, reading, we'll be offering schemes and incentives, and there'll be opportunities for Darlington residents to use our services to enrich their lives. There'll be growth, new initiatives, and I'll provide some examples. So I'm currently working on Reading Friends, where we will be loaning iPads to digitally excluded, isolated older adults. We're wanting to provide a window to the library where we will provide a group led by library staff who will instigate discussion, fun, laughter, and provide meaningful company to those participants. The group will be sent reminiscence items and fun props to create discussion and just add to the feel-good factor, really. A small project, but one that we hope will have a massive impact on the participants involved. We are also, we're involved in a pilot scheme to loan some tablets to digitally excluded adults who are living in Skern Park. The tablets will be loaned from the library and recipients will be provided with teaching and support from Learning and Skills. They'll be taught how to use the device and how to access information on them. If this goes well, we do hope to extend the scheme town-wide, using the library as the point of loan and the venue for tutoring. We hope this will lead to an increased uptake and engagement in the library and the adult learning services, ultimately leading to more confident and skilled people living and working in our town. We've created some reminiscence boxes, which we'll be offering for loan. The theme boxes provide a range of items designed to stir memories and generate conversation and discussion. We expect them to be utilised by families with older relatives, caregivers working with the elderly, and people trying to reach those suffering with memory loss and dementia. Recognise the importance of experiences and interactions this year. Those are what we've all missed the most. Our library service will continue to inspire reading and book sharing, and we will continue to work to improve the lives of Darlington residents, whatever their age group or demographic. We want to shout about our services more, and we do want to engage new audiences. We're going to continue to change the rhetoric that libraries are a place where you'll be shushed. Expect to see more outward-facing work, more activity and programming, and opportunities for meaningful conversations and interactions. Expect a warmer welcome and a cleaner, brighter environment. Expect to be able to join groups and attend family events. But remember that if you just want a quiet place to study or to borrow the latest Lucinda Riley book, you can always do that at Darlington Libraries. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to get a sip of water, but I'll welcome any questions.
Thank you, Susie. Really great presentation, and you took over at a difficult time, but you've obviously adapted really well, and you're obviously very passionate about the subject. And my kids really enjoyed all the Facebook Live book sessions last year. So,
well, Councillor, I enjoyed seeing your kids the other day. It was the first time I've seen a bit of activity going on. We're missing it in the library.
Oh yeah. So I'll open to questions, please. First on the list I have Councillor Tate.
Thank you, Chair. And I just wanted to say thank you and well done to Susie and her team, because the services that they've managed to deliver during the pandemic have obviously made such a difference to people's lives, especially people that have been isolated. I've got residents who are using the services both digitally, and they've really appreciated that, so thank you. I don't know if my question is for Susie. It's more around the finance of the refurb. Is somebody on the call able to confirm what we are spending on the refurb of the main library, and do we expect that to go up, given that all the rest of our projects have gone over their existing budgets, and that's just based on Brexit and obviously COVID? So is somebody able to confirm that?
Chair, I can pick that up if you're happy.
Yes, please. Yep.
Yeah. The project costs are currently being finalised. We're just waiting for the final tenders to come in, and once that happens, then we will obviously confirm the overall cost of the scheme. Currently, the Cabinet have allocated 2.9 million for the restoration of the library, but as I say, we're just waiting for those final tenders to return before I can obviously confirm the final costs.
So do we expect that to go up a little bit, Ian?
I mean, I think evidence has been, in terms of tenders coming back, that costs are higher than we've anticipated. However, obviously, until those final costs come back, I can't really comment on what that will be.
Thank you. Just a follow-up question, if I may, Chair.
Yep.
Obviously, there is a big move to digital, and that's been enhanced by the pandemic. Do we anticipate that some of the allocation of the money might need to be spent differently, given the use might be different moving forward?
Again, if I can, Chair, in terms of the refurbishment, obviously part of that is to ensure that the library is sort of digitally adapted in terms of moving forward. So obviously we're trying to take on board the new agendas, and Susie and the team are obviously heavily involved in the refurbishment anyway. So Susie's obviously helping guide that.
So it will be reviewed, we think?
Yeah, it'll be part of the refurbishment, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Curry. Please.
Thank you. I welcome the fact that you're trying to reach out to elderly people who are probably isolated and stuck in the house. Over the COVID situation, I heard of a lady in my ward who's blind, and she has a carer comes in and reads to her every day. I don't know if she's aware of the talking books and things like that, but it would be nice as councillors to have the sort of remit of what you're going to be offering, so we could put it in through people's doors that we know that are vulnerable, that may be able to access this sort of information, because I don't know if the council will be able to know everybody, but we as councillors probably do know that a lot of the vulnerable people in our wards, and we'll be able to give them a leaflet or a flyer about that sort of information. So I'd welcome helping you get that information out.
It's a really good point, Councillor Curry. It's something we really struggled with at the beginning, because we ultimately knew we wanted to put this plan together and reach these people, but they are the ones that are difficult to reach in a world where we were leaflets and things weren't going through people's doors as much because of coronavirus. So a lot of our work was putting it out on social media, on the website, and asking people to read it and share it with people. So actually a lot of the customers we've got on the home deliveries, they've literally heard it from the person over the garden fence. So word of mouth is incredibly strong. So I would absolutely welcome being able to disseminate information to councillors so that they can help us spread the word.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Durham, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Susie, for the presentation. The positivity and the message that we're on a positive movement going forward with the Crown Street Library and the Cocketton Library. Story time. The various other bits and pieces that you did on social media during the pandemic were absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
You and your team, you know, a big pat on the back. Just one. Well, first of all, this is where Ian may come in. It's linked into the refurbishment. Now, I know the deadline for the tendering date was the 22nd of January. Was that now then pushed back?
Yeah, I think obviously in terms of the work programme, it has slipped slightly, and obviously those tenders, majority of them are now back. There's a couple still outstanding that we're just waiting for coming in, and the intention is that work will start on site in May. And at this moment in time, and it may change slightly, but it'll be a 62-week programme.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Back to you, Susie. Just on obviously the digital offering. You know, we don't quite understand at this moment in time how much is due to COVID and how much is natural movement to people moving from physical to digital. My question is, in terms of the book offering that we've got, how much, and I appreciate it's difficult to give an answer at this meeting, but how much are exclusively digital?
It's an interesting question. It's very relevant, and it's something that in the next month I'm working with the stock services department to pull together a new strategy around our stock purchasing. The last year in COVID, obviously the first quarter of the year people weren't working in the library, publishers weren't working, so the book stock actually was slow to come. So a lot of our buying was done at the latter part of the year. In terms of digital, it's not a huge proportion. I couldn't give you the exact figure off the top of my head. If I was putting my finger in the air, I'd probably say about 20% as the online resources, but I'd really have to look into that better. But we are looking at getting together and looking at the aims and objectives, because it has changed. Like I was saying with those key performance indicators, book borrow was the perfectly right thing to be reporting on years ago. You see the word library, you hear the word books, but now, you know, our budget is split. We sometimes have to get a book in 6 different formats, and you got a popular book and people read it in different ways. So that means that we have to purchase the same copy of a book, but in different formats. So that is a challenge, and we need to sit down really and work out how best we deal with that.
Okay. In terms of formats, do you mean language or?
No, well, that would be a 7th really. But yeah, in terms of you got the hardback book, and 3 months later the paperback will come out, and we'll probably buy that in large print for our older customers. Those are all standard. We've got books on CD, so a lot of our older customers who like to listen to a story, or perhaps they're visually impaired, they might not have moved away from CDs and they've still got the CD player at home. And those book issues have gone up this year, despite CDs to most of us being kind of redundant. We need to buy the format in an ebook, and we need to buy it in e-audio, so that people like me, when I'm going running or cleaning the house, can put a book on and listen to it with my headphones on.
Okay. Thank you. And just my final question. It's around the art collection which the library holds.
Mm-hmm.
Could you expand on any plans for that moving forward?
Yeah, so we're obviously maintaining Crown Street Art Gallery in our library, in our refurbished library, which is really exciting. There was comments that came up with the consultation about seeing some of the other artwork that's kind of, it's always available. So if there's a request to see it, we'll get it out and bring it up. But there was a request to have it more visible. So we've worked on a plan where we're going to incorporate a kind of a small space that will change over regularly in the library refurbishment. So we do hope to get some more of that out visibly.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, fantastic, Susie, to see what that began under the previous administration is really bearing fruit, and certainly we will be promoting more about the access to the library through our leaflets and online. I was just looking at the performance indicators, and I think the suggestions you've made are all entirely sensible. I just wondered, the one that seems to be missing, though I may have missed it, is the number of library members who have borrowed a book in the last year. I mean, presumably that's either physically or remotely, because what that stat gave us was a sense of, who is active and who is actually not active, and also could give us an idea about, actually it's a relatively small, maybe sometimes a small number of people borrowing a large number. What you clearly would like is as many people as possible borrowing, whether it's digitally or physically. And I just wondered how that's going to be captured.
It's a really good point, and there is a reason. There's a reason why I'm really challenging that figure. So the active borrowers referred to people who have borrowed a physical book in the last year. We have no way of capturing those people who borrow digitally. So those were never included. So if I read you out 2019-20. That's 9,113. If I come to this year's figure, so bearing in mind our doors were shut for 3/4 of the year, that goes down to 3,517. That's a drop of 61%. Now, if I say that all these people have gone online and borrowed a digital book, that has not kept them as an active borrower. So I felt that figure was just somewhat flawed and wasn't a true representation. Now I am working separately with IT. We are doing work, not just on the public, what the public see from our digital services, but how we work as staff inside. And we are investigating whether we can do something with our library management system to flag that. In which case, I think you make a really good point. It might be very well and sensible to put that number back in. But this year, it wasn't really a true representation.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because they haven't been allowed in the building for the year, so it's just knocked them all off.
Absolutely. No, fully understand. I was just looking ahead. Mm-hmm. That was a useful sense of, you'd have 8,000 members. Yeah. Actually, a lot of those signed up when they were school kids and didn't darken the door thereafter. Clearly now with digital, matters would be different. Just if I may follow on, Chair, if I may. I mean, just looking at those adult lending junior comparisons you had on the page, and clearly, adults were down, roughly by half, I think, understandably. Actually, the children, the junior lending was down by quite a bit more than that, maybe 60, 70%. Thinking about how we're going to, because the challenge is always with physical bricks and mortar library, were we really getting the kids and the families coming through the door in the way that historically they used to? How, what strategies are we thinking about? I mean, are we continuing with the Dolphin Centre, for example, that in the front, the idea of, you could do a pick and from there, promoting it via Dolphin Centre, via schools. How are we looking at that junior number?
So the junior number is a drop this year, and I would put that down to no activity. So to give you an example, in my past job, I don't know whether people know, but I've worked for the libraries for 12 years. I took on the manager role in June. Prior to that, I initially started children and families engagement, and then the the job got a bit bigger, so sometimes, you know, going into the adults engagement as well. But I was running 8 in-house sessions a week. It's very tiring, but that is what people are going to come in for. I'll visit all the schools and the nurseries. I can deliver a story time session in a school or nursery, and every child in that class is absolutely captivated by the book. Often I invite parents into those sessions if they see that child absolutely captivated by.
I seem to have lost sound there. Did anyone else lose sound?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've lost. Yeah.
You're there, Susie. I'm guessing Susie has connection problems.
She was mid-flow as well.
I know. Hannah, do you want to see if IT can help out?
Yeah, I'll see if they can.
She might just need to try leave and then rejoining.
Looks like the whole thing's frozen.
She's left, so hopefully she'll pop back in and carry on.
Chair, do you want me to pause the streaming while we wait, or are you happy just to keep it?
Yeah, no, pause the streaming. If she's left because she's lost complete connection, we need to find out what's going on.
Okay.
I won't move.
Should I continue, or did someone have a way?
Just bear with me until the live streaming's back on. Okay, we're back on now, so we can continue.
Thank you,
Apologies,
Susie.
everyone.
Do you want? Do you remember where you were at, or would you like a new question?
I think just to finish it, it was just to say that they're even more likely to come in and visit us if we do put on a children's activity. So it could be an animal encounter, arts and crafts, anything like that. So that's the draw. We need to do plenty of outreach, and we need to show our service off out into the community in order to draw them in. Thank you.
Okay. I have Councillor Cousins.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Susie, for a very good presentation. Just when you mentioned about your volunteers delivering the books, Darlington Support, do you have any other volunteers that are doing that, or is it just the Darlington Support volunteers?
The only volunteers that are delivering our home delivery parcels, the books that we deliver to the over 60s, are from Darlington Support. We have used other volunteers, and I think we would use other volunteers again once we're out of COVID and things. So we've used them. They often get used in the local studies department because there's ongoing jobs in there which they could really do with a hand with, and events. So I've often put on an event and it's been really, really useful to have support there.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, I'm getting as bad as the Mayor. Councillor Mrs. Cully, please.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. First of all, Susie, that was a great report.
Chair, we're back up and running now. If you want to carry on.
Okay, thank you. Where were we at? Were we on news again, Susie?
Yes, and anyone who knows me well knows that things fall out of my head really quickly. So, Councillor Cully, I wrote down your question, so I'm good to go. I'm really pleased your mum's enjoying the service. It's reflective of, to be honest, every single comment I've had. We've just recently done a questionnaire to all our home delivery customers, and the feedback's it's lovely, really lovely. To answer your question about how we are pulling together the book choices, it's been assigned to one full-time member's full job now, so it's taken up all her hours to do the book choosing, plus support staff, which is why we got some volunteers in to actually do the deliveries. We invite the customer to tell us what genres they like, if they've liked particular authors in the past. That's really easy for the first month's delivery. Bearing in mind we could be delivering, around 10 books to these people. That's really easy to go and find, the books that they've kind of listed. The challenge comes the next month, because if their interests haven't changed, she's then looking for a selection that mirrors it, that she thinks that's right. Once she loads these onto the computer, it might alert her to the fact that this borrower's actually had that book before, so she has to start all over again. So they're hand chosen, and I think that is why people have liked the service so much. We've had people say, "Oh, these books I've been sat in my house through lockdown. Actually, I've been to Australia, I've been to Paris, I've been here," and it's made a real vital difference to people. Which is why I will say as well, our staff have. We've all enjoyed working on it. We've all enjoyed working on this project. It's given us a lot of feel-good factor during this lockdown as well. Oh, and sorry, I didn't finish off answering your question. So, the 5 recommended read bags that you saw in that presentation, that was to allow other age groups to come and borrow when our doors were locked. So we put together, a crime and thriller bag, a romance bag. We did them for different age groups as well, so that if people just came to our door, and although we couldn't let them in the building, we would have a selection that might suit their needs. That was popular. Now there is some small logistical problems to us doing that on a long-term basis when we're open, but I certainly think it got good feedback, and I'd be open to that being an initiative that maybe we can't offer it all the time, but we could kind of put it out the bag at times.
Thank you, Susie. I was a little disconcerted to see the 1960s was for old people. Thanks a lot for that.
Was that? Did I say that?
No, on the slide. It showed the 1960s, and you were talking about old people.
No.
I'm offended or what?
I did say I'd love an 80s one.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Bring Councillor Heseltine in.
Thanks, Chair. First of all, Susie, my thanks to you and the staff and the great achievements that you've managed over these difficult times. And it's obvious by your presentation today, your enthusiasm for that role with what is also a difficult area to deal with. I mean, I read a lot of books and think, but there's a difference between wanting to own a book or wanting to just read a book. And I maybe have a couple of 100 books upstairs in the attic, but the only ones I really want to hang on to are not the books, are information books, you know, stuff like that. But I have a great collection. And I just, to be fair, I just wanted to raise an issue about the app. But before I do that, I'd just like to make a comment that the thing is to Councillor Cully. You mentioned about the problems with the library and the £100,000, Councillor Cully. But what you've got to remember is the council was taken to court by the plaintiff. Council didn't want to go to court. We were taken to council, was taken to court, and you lost. And you lost. That's not the reason. The court case was not the reason that the decision on the library was altered. There were many, many other factors behind that decision. So don't keep coming back at the Labour group and that about because of the court case you made a difference. You lost the court case. It's as simple as that. On the app, Susie, it took about 45 seconds to download. Absolutely brilliant.
That's
however, you can't register online from the app. You've already got to have done that at the library. In your talks with IT, will there be any chance you can make it so that you can register once you've downloaded the app?
There is huge.
Not just. I mean, I could go to the library. I can get it on the bus or walk down or whatever. But there will be residents who would find the app very useful, but the difficulty is registering.
Yeah. No, it's a really good point. The app. I'm sounding like the app company now, but the app is in development. So right. We do raise these things with them, and it is in development. But we do have online memberships which can be done on our website. So I think that the really easy win with that we could do now is to put a link from our app to the website. So it's a really good point because we need to hear the customer feedback, and ultimately you've given me that as a customer, which is really useful. And so that would be a first thing we could do so that they can join online. There's a number of things technology wise with our website and with our app that need improving. I'll reassure you there's just a huge body of work going on behind the scenes to improve things. I'm very, very open to hearing comments from a customer point of view because it will help. It will help direct these improvements. Nothing's quite as fast as I want it to be, but I'm sure we'll get there and make these improvements.
Right. Thank you very Susie, and well done.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wallace, did your hand come down? Did you not have a question then? Okay. So that's all the questions we have for you, Susie. Thank you very much for that presentation. We shall move on now to agenda item number 6, which is an update on Darlington Hippodrome by Mike Crawshaw.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'm just going to share my screen, and the presentation is going to be a bit of a double act between myself and Heather Tarrant-Jones. Heather is the programming director for the theatre, and certainly I know members want to hear about what our plans are for the forthcoming year coming out of restrictions. So I'll just share screen now. Okay then, just in terms of some context, and I'm conscious that a lot of members will be familiar with the journey that we've been on in recent years around the Hippodrome, but obviously that has been quite a journey. So just in terms of some context for the restoration of our wonderful theatre in the town, this process started but way back in 2010 and starting to look at options for where we would go in terms of sustaining the theatre within our town. And that body of work took us right the way through the decade, really, through to the grand reopening in November 2018, which had followed a big process of restoration over the previous 18 months with lots of partners. That image there shows what we're also very proud of in the town right now, what we have, our wonderful Edwardian Theatre, 1,000-seat Edwardian Theatre. In terms of why we were able to progress in the case for restoring the Civic Theatre, as we all remember, well, it was 100 years old in 2007, and whilst it was still very well loved, it was well used, but clearly needed some restoration and refurbishment. There was certain aspects of the building, particularly the comfort level, in terms of seat space, capacity, ventilation, toilet provision, food and drink provision. They were really well past their best. And those were the things that customers and partners were telling us time and time again that we really needed to improve as part of the theatre visit. So all of that went into that design mix. There was a lot of consultation went on with residents, with obviously with theatre goers, school groups and other partners that informed what the design process ultimately looked like. And I use the word restoration very deliberately because that's exactly what it was. We worked with the theatre specialists across not just the north of England, but across the UK, really to look at the specialist aspects of Edwardian theatre and how we could restore those in a way that was suitable for an audience, obviously in the 21st century. So that's a kind of overview of where we were on Parkgate. Lots of you remember the old Borough Road entrance and what Parkgate used to look like with the old box office at the front of the building there. I won't go in too much into this case for support because I'm conscious that you'll really want to hear about where we're going forward coming out of the COVID situation. But we did really focus on those historical aspects of our Edwardian theatre and that sense of ensuring that we restored the Hippodrome right in the middle of, obviously in the middle of Darlington, at the centre of our cultural offer, and engaged our local communities with that. That was really crucial to the whole vision, if you like, for what that restoration would look like. So, as I said earlier, that restoration work took part largely or heavily over an 18-month period. There was lots of gems uncovered in that time with the contractors that we work with, in terms of some of the old tile floors that were hidden. Lots of the secrets, if you like, of the theatre were revealed during that time, but it allowed us really to root and branch, deal with some of the issues that our customers were telling us were were a problem when they were visiting year after year. So huge programme of work with the contractor, but the net result of that was that whole-scale restoration and extension. You'll see the glass atrium there, which was obviously the new part of the restoration, and the old restaurant units that were adjacent to that, which we were able to acquire, refurbish and extend the building there, so that we've now got a destination cafe and bar area, the Hippo Lounge, that serves our theatre customers, our theatre patrons on arrival, as well as providing a daytime destination and use for education groups and a whole range of other partners. So food and drink certainly has been a big part of extending the experience. We've now got 5 bar areas that serve the theatre, and that capacity for the theatre we were able to increase from 960 odd to over 1,000, which again helps us when we're talking to producers. The auditorium there, that was a crucial part of the restoration, the full reseating of the auditorium. It was re-tiered to enable us to grow the capacity, but most importantly for customers, the leg room's much better, the comfort level of the seats again has improved. So, you know, when you sat in the theatre, in the auditorium for 1.5, 2 hours, sometimes 2 hours plus, it's a much better experience. Okay, so those are the key principles of where we came from with the restoration, and obviously that what went alongside that is the real desire, a business plan to reinforce what the future was going to look like with the programme going forward, a more ambitious programme, more West End shows in the town, more theatres, so more performances throughout the year, and a greater diversity of programmes. So I'm going to hand over to Heather, who's going to talk us through that and our obviously our COVID experience, how we've engaged with our audience, but perhaps more importantly, what's going to happen now over the next 12 months and beyond. So I'll hand over to you, Heather. Thank you, Mike, and hello everybody. So moving on from Mike's discussion, obviously the improvements to the Hippodrome fed into the business plan, and one of the major things that the change in the Hippodrome's seating plan has enabled us to do, so changing of capacity from 920 up to 1,015, has enabled us to really move into another bracket of theatre touring companies. So that magic number of 1,000 just meant that we all of a sudden caught the attention of producers that were touring to theatres in and around the region, but not necessarily looking at Darlington as one of the options to bring their touring shows to. As you all know, we are a receiving theatre. We don't produce our own theatre in-house, so we are reliant on the touring industry and what's accessible to us. And so it really did open up a whole new array of shows that could visit us. So in the first couple of years of reopening from 2017, we saw large-scale shows like Curtains, starring Jason Manford, come into the theatre. Huge names like Stephen Tompkinson come in Educating Rita. Big comedians like Chris Ramsey, amongst others, visiting us. Large-scale adaptations of films like Rain Man visiting the theatre, all of which had huge ticket sales and attracted audiences from a much wider area as well. We've always had a great reach at the Hippodrome, but it's once again helped to increase that reach from Darlington, North Yorkshire and across the Tees Valley down towards the York area. And we obviously had huge plans last year to continue to grow on this. One of the important things with the show programming for us, though, was, yes, we wanted to attract new audiences, but we also wanted to ensure that we didn't totally transform the programme. It was really important for us to not risk off-putting those audiences that have been coming for years and years, those people that have been committed to the theatre, love the theatre, have loved the programme, and have great disposable income as well. You know, there are regular visitors. So the curation of the actual programme itself is built around an eclectic mix of audience visitors, but also within the business plan, trying to reach newer, younger audiences. And when I say younger, I'm talking, you know, people in the 40s and 50s are the audience that are core to us, that we really need to focus our efforts on at the moment, because some of our older audiences that have been coming for the last 20 or 30 years, sadly, they are dwindling and they're less likely to want to go out at night. So there's a real focus here through using the programme to attract the right age audience and to try and ensure that we've always got a really buoyant attendance at the theatre. If you want to move on to the next slide, Mike, please. Thanks. One of the fantastic things that the restoration has enabled us to do is to branch out, not just through bringing in income from the ticket sales and the show programme, but the additional spaces which Mike highlighted. There's 5 bars across the building,
and it enables us to offer function space. We've got conferencing facilities. We can host weddings at the theatre. People can drop in for business meetings, and we saw the hires of the building steadily increasing over the last 2 or 3 years. And just before lockdown actually hit, we had just finalised a brochure of hire and conferencing facilities, and we were getting set to proactively go out with that and try and grow that area of income. In 2019, 2020, we did have a target of 13,000 for conferencing and hire, and actually we came in at over 21,000. So it's just proof that there's a demand for it, and we're really keen to develop that moving forward. In July in 2019, we got asked whether or not we would be able to host the Conservative hustings as the Northeast venue. We had about a week to turn it around and make the decision as to whether or not we'd be able to do this. And we were confident that we had the right facility, we could manage it confidently and professionally. And it ran really smoothly. It was fantastic. We got great feedback from the organisers. And there's a very short film here which I'd like to show you. You may have to share audio, Mike, if it pops up. Hosting this event gave us great confidence that we could go on and host other large conferences. And actually, during the closure year, we were due to host an international tourism conference, which sadly had to be postponed. But we do hope that that will be coming back to us at some point in the autumn or the autumn after. Thanks, Mike. We can move across to the next slide. So the other fantastic thing we've been able to do since the restoration is increase the level of creative learning and engagement with the community. Before the closure, we had youth theatre and youth dance classes taking place across at Hummersnott School. We didn't have a place within the building for creativity to happen or to engage people fully apart from the auditorium as a larger space. Now we've got an education space, we've got the breakout rooms and meeting spaces. And across the last couple of years, we've really had fantastic success at increasing the levels of participation in the events that we already had, but also starting up new things. So one of the things we really wanted to do when we restored the theatre was to start up a volunteer service, and we partnered up with Darlington for Culture during the closure period, and we developed something called Darlington Culture Volunteers, which we jointly managed together, and they now play an absolutely huge part in the theatre's activities. There's a whole host of opportunities for them to volunteer, and they're often the first face you see as you walk through the door. You can see in the top right image there, that's one of our welcome hosts who is full of kind of answers of anything you might need to know. You know, where are the nearest loos? Where's the box office? Do you know how much ice creams are? All those questions that you've got burning as you walk through the door. They're always a really friendly face to walk in, and the volunteers who do that role absolutely love it, and they really feel embedded in the organisation, which was really important for us. Really keen to make sure that they attend training along with front of house staff members so that they feel comfortable and confident that they know how to greet people. We also have some fantastic archive volunteers. The Hippodrome has a huge archive of information, both imagery and information, and it's just been sitting there for a very long time, and it was really important for us. And as part of the National Lottery Heritage Funding, we wanted to make sure that we explored that and brought it to life, really. So the gallery spaces within the Hippodrome now across the 3 floors have enabled us to showcase some of the fantastic archive that we have, from old show programs and show posters to discovering some of the famous artists that performed on the stage across that time. So if we flip to the next slide, Mike. And in the last fully operating financial year, these are just some of the headline numbers which I'd like to share with you, which we're really proud of. So the number of performances in 1920 was 293. We had 131,000 people attend the theatre to watch a performance. The show programme brought in £2.9 million with a retained margin on that of 33%. The food and beverage offer, income from that, brought in just over £500,000 across the year, and our total food and beverage profit margin was 40%. And participation in learning engagement came in at 7,262 people engaging in our programme of engagement activities, both for young people and adults. And total users in the theatre was 154,183. And it is actually hard to get a full figure on that because there are a lot of numbers that we were unable to measure across the period, things like cafe users, which isn't necessarily easy to measure. So the numbers are likely to be higher. But in terms of where that was against our performance indicators, on the whole, it met all of our performance indicators, and in some areas even went higher than the actual KPIs themselves. So we were really pleased with that. Next slide, please, Mike. Obviously, whilst we were restoring Darlington Hippodrome, we were also part of an adjoining project funded by Arts Council England to create the Hullabaloo Theatre, which is home to the Theatre Hullabaloo Company, and they specialise in early years creativity. It's a 170-seat auditorium, and they have a programme of theatre and events for early years, for 7 years and under, as well as free creative play space and a cafe. We, in the evening, are able to programme smaller scale theatre, live shows, musicians and comedians into that space. So it just gives us an additional option for show programming. And over the last couple of years, we have had some success, and that programme has started to grow. And I'm really excited about the future of that smaller scale space for 2021 and 2022 season. Next slide, please, Mike. So, impacts of COVID, as you all know, the theatre industry has been very hard hit by this, and we were amongst the first of organisations to close on the 16th of March back in 2020. And our initial reaction was to make sure that we communicated as much as possible with customers, offered refunds for the immediate shows that were coming up, and made sure that the team at the Hippodrome felt fully informed and were able to do what they could working from home. Donations started to flood in from ticket holders. Many of them, rather than ask for a refund, were asking us to retain the money to use to support the theatre. And we sought financial support from the furlough scheme as soon as it became available. And across the rest of the year, we had access to apply to the Arts Council's Cultural Recovery Fund. So in round one, I put a bid in for £1 million for the theatre to help support overheads, retain the staff, and run a programme of activities across the closure period. And we were successful in that £1 million bid, which has made a huge difference to what we've been able to deliver across the period. And then more recently in the new year, we put a second bid into round two for £500,000 or just under £500,000. And again, we've been successful in that bid, which is absolutely fantastic. And again, the bid itself will enable us to offset the loss of ticket sales from the show programme. It will enable us to sustain the theatre and the overhead costs, help retain the jobs at the theatre, and look forward to the recovery plan, the reopening, a huge marketing campaign, and purchase of some equipment which will help us to sustain our programme as we return to normal across the rest of the year. So obviously we closed in March and we were closed for quite a long period, but we were fortunate enough to be able to reopen the theatre in the October period. So between March to September, we offered everything online. We picked up the youth dance, the youth theatre, and we moved those classes onto Zoom. We created things for school engagement. We did online careers fairs. We shared our heritage learning resources with schools. We developed a programme of adult movement and dance sessions, something that we'd never previously done before in the building. And it had a fantastic response, great engagement with it, particularly our Monday Movers class, which was always fully instated. And this is a specific movement class for people 50 and over. And the feedback from that has been absolutely fantastic, not only for the movement and the kind of fitness levels it gives them, but actually for their own well-being across this period, particularly those people that have been isolated and not been able to leave the home. This has been a weekly interaction, a social time for people where actually at the end of the session, they all share a cup of tea and a chat once they've finished. And so it's been a real breath of fresh air. And I would say one of the big successes of our online activity. As we moved later into the closure period, we wanted to look wider at how we could bring theatre into people's homes. And we accessed some streaming activities, working with a partner called Fane Productions, offering famous celebrity faces in conversation with people, and they've been a real hit as well. When we reopened in September and October, you can see here we were able to move some things back onto the stage, and it was really positive to see people coming back in. We were worried about customer confidence when they returned to the building, but actually with all of our COVID safe guidelines in place, face covering wearing, social distancing, and a really well-trained Hippodrome team to be able to deliver this fantastic programme of activities. Customers were really happy and continually feeding back, both verbally and via email, about how pleased they were to be back in a theatrical environment, how great it was that we were able to adjust our programme from live theatre to classic cinema, which was the core programming that we did across the summer, as well as engagement activities. And the classic cinema was fantastic. People really enjoyed it and started to visit us on a more regular basis. And then unfortunately we went again into another lockdown, as you all know, in the November period. So our temporary opening was a success. It offers us the opportunity to get some confidence. And so moving forward now, we really do feel in a much better position to open in May 2021. So looking forward at our plans, we are very heavily reliant on the touring industry being back up and running, as you know. And in conversation with producers and as I'm trying to book shows for the upcoming period, it's become obvious over the last 6 months that many producers are unable to afford to tour shows. They either regularly come on deals which are guaranteed certain amounts of income, which we can't take the risk on, or the running costs are just too high and there's not enough venues to tour to. So it leaves us in quite a strange place where we've got a bit of a hybrid offer with online streamed events, some live theatre with socially distanced audiences, a cinema offer, the classic cinema again, and West End Live encore screenings. The May brochure, which if I can, I'd like to share with you now. This will drop on people's doorsteps at the beginning of May, and I'm sure you'll share my enthusiasm for it when I say it's absolutely jam-packed full of everything for anybody. So, you know, whether you're somebody that's still feeling the need to stay at home and you know, a little bit worried about going back out into the community or into social spaces, or whether you're somebody that is absolutely raring to go and can't wait to get back into the theatre, there really is something for everyone in here. So there's a huge host of events here on our diary page, as you can see. We have great engagement activities such as the Ballet Masterclass with Northern Ballet's Gavin McCaig. Darlington Operatic Society will be doing our first live event as we reopen to audiences, and that will happen in June on a socially distanced seating plan. And then as we move across the summer, you'll see some live theatre dotted across the programme. We've indicated in the brochure as well what kind of seating plan it will be on so that people can make a decision about whether they feel comfortable returning to the building. A real mix of family shows, some drama, musical events. Sir Michael Parkinson, which had sold out and has been rescheduled 3 or 4 times, but still holds a really strong audience. And then we've also done a glimpse forward into the autumn season here. So you can see there's some fantastic shows to come, some huge West End musicals like Rock of Ages, some great well-known titles like Sleepy Hollow, and our horror and horror dramas are always very popular. The classic cinema show programme, which will run across the summer. Some fantastic picks of encore West End screenings. And the continuation of our Body, Mind and Spirit, our classes for adults. The theatre in the living room will continue, where you can have access to live streamed events through the Fame Productions link. And Darlington Hippodrome and Darlington Youth continues to thrive, and we've got some great end of term performances planned in on the Hippodrome stage. As well as this, we're also bolting on some fantastic summer programme with heritage workshops, a live stage every Saturday throughout the summer at Joseph Pease Place, as well as lots of other events which may be hosted across the town in partnership with the Town Centre events team. We've got a whole host of backstage tours, including heritage tours and ghost tours. The Hippodrome quiz, which has been a massive hit with our audiences across the whole of the closure period, and some great new exhibitions in the galleries. We've got weddings to offer. In fact, we just got another new wedding booking yesterday. And we've also been quite clear about the different seating plans available across the different periods, so that people can quite clearly feel comfortable about returning to the theatre. The opening hours will be 10 until 2, around cafe opening times for the box office. And then any later events, we'll make sure there's a box office open. And then moving forward, as we look at how we project things might return to normal as such, if you could move to the last slide, please, Mike. I'll just clear this off my screen.
I think we're overlapping there, Heather, actually. You saw that?
Yeah, I've taken mine down.
Okay.
One of the things that we've been constantly reviewing across the whole closure period due to COVID is customer confidence. We've continued to reach out to our audiences and follow national reviews and surveys of customer confidence to anticipate how audiences might return to the theatre. And it's kind of an impossible thing to do. And obviously we're really keen to bring audiences back, but it has to be done safely, and it has to be at the right pace for our audiences as well, which is why the programme is so eclectic across the summer and early autumn period, to cater for everybody's different situations and feelings around the pandemic. So we're not sure yet whether or not lateral flow testing might have to be introduced, whether vaccine passports will. They will. It's all under review at the moment, so as things change in the roadmap as we get to the 21st of June, it may be that we have to introduce that, and obviously we'll just continue to follow the government guidance as we get to that. Panto will be the real key indicator for us as to how we think audiences are returning. It's our biggest selling event of the year. It brings in the largest amount of income from ticket sales and secondary spend at the bar. And at the moment, ticket sales are obviously a lot slower than they would be at this time of year. But we've got a marketing plan which we're currently developing with Kudos Pantomimes to really push ticket sales later in the season than normal. We anticipate people's buying habits will change. Tickets will be bought much later in the day than previously. And sadly, it means that we might have to hold our nerve a little bit more when it comes to ticket sales. But the way that we anticipate it would be that in that July-August period, potentially we would like to see that we're at 20% of normal box office ticket sales. As we move towards the autumn period, we'd expect to start being back somewhere 40 to 50% of normal box office sales. And as we reach the Christmas period, we would anticipate getting to around 60% of normal box office sales. And it wouldn't be until the new year when we think that we might be a little bit more buoyant, 75%, and then moving into the next financial year, hopefully back up to 100% of where we would normally be for ticket sales. It's very difficult to anticipate, but we'll continue to review and speak to our audiences to make sure that we are welcoming the audiences in the right way to encourage people to come back. Some of the new things that we've got in place to support audience return is an order to seat app so that people can order drinks and food in their seat. Ticket scanners to ensure that people don't have to come close to scan tickets for audience and staff safety. And we're working with a company called Yes Plan for ticket protection, which will protect both the Hippodrome from losses due to people having to self-isolate or due to illness, but also to protect the ticket buyer from losing money on their tickets. It works well for both sides. We've looked across the industry and most theatres are using that now, and we feel like it's the right time for us to move in that direction too. And finally, I think the important thing to say here is that we need audiences to come back to the Hippodrome. Engagement in our other activities, our classes, our education offer is fantastic. But when it comes to ticket sales, that's our real focus over the next 6 months. So I would urge you to share the contents of our brochure with your local constituents, with your friends, with your families, and do consider returning to the theatre where it's a fantastically safe environment. We've got a great show offer on. And so if there's any questions, Mike and I would love to take them now.
Okay, thank you, Heather.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Thank you, Mike. Really exciting year coming up for the theatre, so I'm sure everyone will join me in saying great work for everything you've done, and we look forward to coming in. Okay, I have Councillor Wallace first.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Heather and Mike. Fantastic presentation, as always. Can I just ask you a bit more about furlough and the finances? Great to hear about the £1.5 million worth of support we had, and presumably there was also, some workers would have been able to access the furlough scheme more generally. I know elsewhere in the industry in London there was an issue about some people on different kinds of contracts, like backstage staff and bar staff, for example, having problems accessing that. Did that £1.5 million mean you could cover all the staff that we employ? Could you tell me a bit more about how long we can use that money for? So is it time limited, or is it can it run on well into the autumn and beyond? And finally, is it ring fenced to both the Hippodrome and Hullabaloo, or just the Hippodrome, or both? Just to give me an idea about how the money is being used and how far through that £1.5 million are we so far. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, if I could come in first on that, I'm sure Heather will have some comments as well, but certainly, Nick, in terms of we've used the government's furlough scheme initially through that first phase of the pandemic for our whole Hippodrome team. I would just clarify that the Hullabaloo team is obviously a separate organisation and funded in a separate way through Arts Council. We do obviously work very close with Miranda and their team, and we've been supporting them with their return to business, which will, I'm sure members will be interested, which will be a 2-week Hullabaloo in the Park in July, end of July and August, so that they can return for young families within Darlington and get their programme up and running. But in terms of their financing for their operation, there is obviously a separate organisation there. We support them through access, obviously, to the building. So we have used the furlough scheme. Heather then was able to access money through the Culture Recovery Fund phase round 1 and round 2. So our corporate financial team have supported with marrying those up, so obviously so there isn't any double counting, and that's all done appropriately. The other thing that members will be aware of is that our Hippodrome team has played a really important role within the community testing sites. A really high proportion of our team has been based in the 5 community settings and the Dolphin Centre, carrying out the lateral flow tests, both pre and post Christmas. So obviously there's been a displacement of cost there, where we've been able to redeploy staff to fulfil that function. That obviously has been paid through, paid for in this instance by government COVID intervention money. So it's been a mix of those things, Nick.
In terms of the timeline for that, Nick, the round 1 funding from Arts Council was for a particular space of time. So it was from the October to March period. So it covered a 6-month period to spend the £1 million. And so we've put the final evaluation for that project in now for the final drawdown of that money. And then the round 2 funding, which we've now accessed, begins in April and runs through to June. So it's a smaller length of time. It's just a 3-month period. And it will continue to cover the same outgoings, so theatre overheads, staff retention. And when we talk about staff retention, it is the majority of jobs in the theatre, and then casual staff who are on regular hours have had their regular hours met as well through that. So we've been able to, sustain ourselves as we would have done had we been opened in that sense. And then some of the money will go towards building the programme again, ready for the reopening in this second round.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Very helpful.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Durham.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Heather, for the presentation. And, as we previously had a brief update at Economy and Resources Scrutiny. Thank you once again for successfully securing the second tranche of grant funding. My question is in and around First of all, I've got a question in around the food and beverage offering, which we're going to have, and we had a presentation earlier about the market. And it's going to be clear as we come out of COVID, and as we're seeing so far, there's a real appetite for people to get back out there, and it's going to be a very, very competitive market. How do you think the Hippodrome and its offering is going to be affected by that in terms of the competitiveness that we're going to experience in the town?
Okay, if I could come in first, Heather, just with a few comments. Thanks, Councillor Durham. Yeah, food and beverages for the restored Hippodrome, Councillor Durham, has been an absolute cornerstone of what we want the customer experience to be. It was something that certainly was lacking in our civic theatre days, and the fact that now we've got those 5 bar areas to support your visit to the Hippodrome, it's crucial. So what we've done is we've kind of streamlined what the offer is during the intermittent periods we've been allowed to open over the last 12 months, so that there isn't obviously a lot of wastage on stock and the types of challenges that you've got when you've got truncated hours and irregular audience patterns and things like that. We certainly see a big push in terms of pre-ordering, like all food and drink venues, in terms of pre-ordering. So we've done a lot of work, haven't we, Heather, through the pre-order app, so that customers will be more, rather than having to queue at the bar in traditional theatre format, which is probably something that nobody's going to be particularly comfortable with in the short to medium term. Pre-ordering is going to be crucial for us. Getting that marketing out at the point of sale when people are purchasing tickets online is something that we want. We want a real increase in people ordering their drinks and food online in advance of their visit. Obviously, in terms of us maximising secondary spend, yes, but also so that the customer feels comfortable on arriving in the venue, that they can, take their seat up and they're not having to stand in line at queues. So that'll be a big part. We're reviewing the content of what we're offering again, because again, through a COVID lens and the types of products that we sell and the style of product. So we're looking at that again to see what is going to fit well with the customer. We're very hopeful that there's going to be a real desire to get out and visit the theatre as we emerge through the summer and people have had, you know, both of their vaccines. We're really hopeful that they will want to return. So that food and beverage and hospitality offer is going to continue to be really important for us. So that and that's where our planning is centred at the moment. Pre-ordering, reviewing the product content, and then obviously maximising the other lines of business that surround that when customers are in the venue.
Thanks for that. Just one thing, obviously talking about minimising wastage, etc.
Yeah.
The contracts that we have in place from suppliers, have they provided us with the flexibility to put things on pause? You know, for example, if we signed a contract just before COVID for 2 years, then that effectively starts once we reopen.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of our bigger suppliers, Councillor Durham. So to give you one example, Heineken, in terms of the work that we do with them, we're obviously we procured a contract with them. What they've enabled us to do during the COVID period is pause the right aspects of that, because clearly we, like everybody else, didn't want to be ordering huge quantities of product that we just couldn't sell. We've suffered some wastage, like all venues, and I'm sure you saw the items in the news about venues having to dispose of product. We were able to do some sale or return on that, but given the speed at which COVID happened and restrictions were imposed, we did lose. There was some product loss there, like all licensed premises.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Tate, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to pick up and make a comment on the restoration piece. The restoration for the Hippodrome is fantastic. It's an amazing asset to the town. And I just wanted to draw on my experience, which was the last, oh, I forgot what you call them now. The pantomime before it closed down for the refurb. I spent a very uncomfortable 2 hours in the second gallery. I couldn't breathe, it was that hot.
Nice.
Since then, I have been back in, and the temperatures are much better because obviously we've now got aircon and stuff like that. But yeah, that was my experience. And I just wanted to say thanks to the staff from the Hippodrome that have been involved in the community testing, which has now turned into the community collect. Obviously, that is being delivered from one of my settings. So Firth Moor is delivering them tests and is now giving out the community collect boxes so people can do their own testing at home, and the staff that have been involved in that have been fantastic. I've used it every week myself to go and get a test. Obviously being involved with the community still and working from home, and the experience every time has been great, and the staff are always happy. So I'd just like you to pass thanks on to them.
I will do, yeah. I mean, they've been an absolutely huge asset to the town across this period, and they've all done it with a smile on the face. And, you know, they've really enjoyed being back together as a team because it's given them that opportunity to be together again and to continue with those, you know, team building and working together skills. So, yeah, it's been great. I'll feed that back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Donoghue.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Mike and Heather. Great presentation. Mine are just 2 easy, quick ones, really. One is, I love going to the theatre. Can't wait for the doors to open. Any chance of getting the bootleg Beatles on? And well, I have to go out of town every time I want to see them. I have to go out to be in town and not. And the other one is great album in the background, Heather. Best album ever.
Thank you.
Being a big Rod Stewart fan, I love it.
The bootleg Beatles is a possibility. I'll tell you something, there is a lot of Beatle related product on the market, and obviously individual acts, you know, there's a Paul McCartney act, there's a Lennon act, So it's trying to pick the right time in the programme so it doesn't clash with other things that are also happening. But it's definitely on my list of one of the Beatles tributes to bring in. And it's always one of the shows that has the highest ticket sales. The music one-nighters are a fantastic bread and butter earner for the theatre. And I know we do sometimes get complaints about it doesn't look great in the programme, but you know what? They really do put bums on seats, those shows, and we'll continue to programme into that programme.
Excellent. Can't wait.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Heseltine, please.
Thanks, Chair. Hi, Mike. Heather, nice to see you both. Been a while. You've covered quite a lot, and I mean the Hippodrome is the jewel in the crown in Darlington in many respects, and it's a much loved theatre right across the country, and our reputation is one of the highest and best you can get. But I always remember, and sort of go back a little bit, the Hippodrome was always a drain on resources around the maintenance and the problems that we had with the building. As you know, it's built on the old riverbed and was prone to water problems and stuff. And I know the refurbishment it doesn't look out of place, that 100-year-old building or whatever, with the new, fits absolutely lovely. It's worthy of a great award, I would think. But you've not mentioned, I mean, it's nice that it's coming back. We've had the issues with COVID. It's nice that we can get productions on. But there is an issue, or is there still a real issue around the level of maintenance to ensure the building's kept at a level that it is? And what do you see the costs for that being?
Could I come in, Chair?
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Councillor Hazeltine. Yeah, we addressed, as you know, we addressed a lot of the historical issues around maintenance during the restoration period. We've tried to build on that with we've got some recent work going on now where we were able to access funds from the Carbon Trust to reduce the carbon footprint of the building. And so we're very comfortable that in terms of the maintenance costs going forward, that we've got a sustainable building there. Those are built into the overall financial model, which obviously was approved and is part of that MTFP plan. So we don't have any, at present, we don't have any additional risks on top of that model right now. There isn't anything within the plan that is flagged up. Well, there is a red flag against. We're comfortable that we've got sustainable maintenance costs within the scope of the financial plan.
Just on that then, Mike, will the maintenance... Right, I accept that. It sounds really good. But if you remember rightly, historically, the maintenance costs for the Hippodrome were never under the Hippodrome's balance sheet. It was always under something else. I can't remember offhand what it was. Will the maintenance costs now be on the Hippodrome balance sheet, or will they remain where they were before?
Well, in terms of the reporting, Councillor, all of the costs for the site are reported, as well as all of the income for the site. I'm sure that's configured as per the Hippodrome balance sheet, and is available in all of those council. It's an open book, is what I'm saying. It's available through all of that MTFP management and governance process. It's all there.
Right. Cheers, mate. Well done, Heather.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McCollum.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Heather, for your presentation. It was really good to see, and I appreciate you providing us figures as well about your expected ticket sales and everything going into the new year, and certainly once you're back open. Reflecting on the presentation we had from Susie regarding the libraries and the KPIs, I wondered what you thought. Obviously, you're moving to a hybrid offer. What sorts of things should we be looking at in terms of certainly what are you looking at in terms of your KPIs for delivery, for outreach? What do you think is going to be the real tell signs that you're making a difference with your reinvigorated programme?
You want to go first, Heather?
Yeah, as you say, across this period, and very similar to Susie, we've realised that there is an appetite there for online engagement, and we'd already seen a shift in that because the natural ticket sales used to sell mainly through the box office and over the phones, but since reopening the theatre, it's now 60% to 70% sales online, and the rest has shift to box office. So there's been a real shift there anyway. So we'd anticipated the take up to be good. And what I'd like to do moving forward is to continue a balance of some live theatre in the building with also a continued online offer as well. So some people have got used to that. Some people actually really enjoy that. They like to break it up with an opportunity to visit a cultural venue as well. But to have that on offer, you know, people at home that maybe can't get childcare, so can't go out, older residents that don't like to go out in the evening, it just gives an additional offer. And the simplified offer as well of how you access those streamed events means that it's very accessible, and we've got a great team who will support people with the IT issues if they have any as well. The box office team are fantastic at supporting people if they're having trouble accessing things.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm thinking about, so I don't know if you have sight of the KPIs and certainly the performance management we get. Cultural 037 is the number of shows held at the Hippodrome. So I wondered whether you'd want to account for the different events that you have going on, because obviously it's so much more than just the shows at the Hippodrome.
Councillor McCollum, there is probably a very natural progression of that. Absolutely, we've traditionally counted those heads around performances and people at performances, but given that we've diversified digitally in terms of what that is, we probably need to catch up and capture that in terms of the KPIs. That would be relatively straightforward for us to do, and therefore capturing digital engagement and the increasing engagement that we've got through education and outreach is something that we can look at, and we can update that. Yes.
That would be fabulous. Thank you both.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Do we have any more questions from councillors? Or no? Okay. Again, thank you, Mike and Heather, for that. Let's move on now swiftly to the work programme. So Hannah's going to talk us through that, but I'll just say that we do have the next meeting of this committee is the first of the new session. So obviously you have an opportunity as a committee to add items to the agenda without putting a quad of aims together, which is always a pain. So have a think about anything that you'd like to add to the calendar next year for the next session, but otherwise I'll hand over to Hannah to talk us through.
Attached is the work programme just for members to consider. The next meeting we've got an update on the Tees Valley Combined Authority Transport Strategy. The CCTV item that's on the work programme is going to be scheduled for the August meeting, and we've also got a meeting to be arranged for the grass verge management task and finish in June, and I'll send a date out for that in due course.
Okay, any questions or potential additions? Nope. Oh, Councillor McCollum, I saw you going for your mouse there.
Sorry, Chair, frantically trying to move my papers and get to my mouse. Yes, just I understand from the presentation we've had, obviously Susie Hill made an excellent presentation, including suggestions of several KPIs that we might want to consider. I would like to propose that we take those forward and ingest those into our performance management.
Thank you, Councillor. Hannah actually prompted me during one of the last presentations to bring that up at any of the business, so well done. Thank you. Shall we do? We'll leave that to any other business because we've got some other hands up, and then we'll. I'm happy to have those proposed, and we'll vote on that. Councillor Curry.
Yes, Councillor Allen had sent 4 questions. Are any of those worthwhile looking at as part of your work programme? I think you were copied into them. One was the Northgate House and how we could spruce it up. The other one was the Northgate approach and places like the Navy Club on Corporation Road, and how we can try and get those looking a little bit better for the build up to 2025. The other one was the rapid environment green crematoria. I think that has been dealt with previously about the emissions that are coming from the new crematorium when it's built. So I'm not sure that is a one that this committee needs to look at. Could you have a review of the bus pass renewing system that had occurred? There was a lot of problems and a lot of phone calls had to be made. The online bus pass renewal system. Can we have is it possible to have a debrief about how that went, so that you're aware of all the issues and how we can improve it for the future?
Yeah, I passed these questions on to a couple of officers to ask their opinions. The Northgate stuff it's probably combined into the Northgate initiative and could potentially be task and finish material. And I asked David and Stanley about the bus passes. So I'm just waiting to hear back on what could possibly be done with those. So it might be something to bring to the next meeting for Councillor Allen. As I said, she won't need a quote of names to suggest to the committee. So we'll see what they come back with, if that's okay.
That's good to know. I'll let her know that all of them are being considered for some sort of work, but whether it goes on behind the scenes and a report comes on the completion, or whether there's a task and finishing group is set up, I'll let her know that she needs to bring them all back up again for a report back. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hazeldine.
Thanks, Chair. You've actually touched on it, which is the Northgate initiative. I think we need a date now to have a relook at that. It's be 6 months come the end of this month, I think, since we had any information. And when you think the Northgate initiative and the railway and the whole thing are all sort of linked together, I think we need to have that on the agenda for a meeting very soon. We're 6 months in. No, it's not long, but it is. And I would like that moved up, or a firm date given for that coming back to the committee, and not as a presentation.
I think members will agree with that.
It needs to be a fact-finding, information gathering, whatever. Not that I don't like presentations. We've had 3 lovely ones today, or 4.
Would you like to have a think of a format and bring it up at the next meeting, and then you won't have to do a quote of names?
I can do that if you wish, Chair. You might not like it, but I can do it.
Give it a go. Councillor Cousins?
Just on the back of what Councillor Hazeldene's just proposed, can we ensure that the 2 Northgate councillors are invited to the meeting, please, to discuss the Northgate initiative?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks.
Okay, so we'll carry on with the work programme as it is. So I'll propose the current work programme. If I have a seconder.
Seconded.
And quick show of hands. Okay, thank you. And we'll move to any other business, and the only other business is, as Councillor McCullum quite rightly pointed out, it would be good to approve those new KPIs for the library service, which all seemed very sensible. So Councillor McCullum has proposed those. I'll second those. So we'll just have a quick show of hands, unless anyone wants to make a comment. I'm assuming people are just putting hands up to approve. Yeah? Okay, perfect. So Hannah, those have been approved. So unless there are any other questions, thank you very much. I will see you at the next meeting. Have a good day.
Thank you, Chair.
Cheers. Thanks, Chair. Bye.
Thanks, Chair.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Hannah.
Bye-bye.